of Famer Cris Carter, who love when he comes on the show. He'll pop by Up and Adams, and Robert May is making his debut. He is of all things The Athletic, and he'll be on the program as well. We had Stroud action. We had Rodgers, read all about it right here. Brady at the Raiders. Josh Jacobs is back. All of your NFL headlines right here in one warm Monday hug of a show. Jets fans everywhere. Breathing it out. You know, there were Jets fans on the radio out east. I was getting a lot of text messages. A lot of fans on like WFAN everywhere saying, let's get him to get hurt now. Just get it over with. He's going to get hurt at some point. He's going to ruin our season, derail. We can't have nice things. So, like, put him out there against the Giants. I hope he gets hurt on the first drive because this is the Jets fan base that I know and love. And it got so in tune with over my decade, 12 years long stint in New York City. Headed back to New York tomorrow, by the way, so I can't wait to talk to some of these Jets fans. But you can relax now, guys. He made it through his first preseason action since 2018 unscathed. And we got our first view of him in the Jets uni out there, the helmet, the whole deal on the field, and he looked pretty darn good. He played 2 drives. While there were a couple miscoms in there, 1 or 2, overall the offense looked pretty sharp. They looked pretty good. A lot of Packers beat writers out there wanting to say this is a bad receiving core. It's the worst receiving core he's had since Jordan Nelson. All right, Peter Bukowski, I don't know. They look pretty good. He had a nice connection with Garrett Wilson, and it's looking a little special here. Aaron threw 4 passes Garrett's way. Wilson caught 3 of them for 30 yards, and a beautiful touchdown you just saw there. The other pass Garrett's way resulted in a 22-yard pass interference penalty that set up the score as well. So it was even better than the box score even showed. I think the connection is going to be, it's going to be up there. It's going to be a Burrow Chase-esque, although they, of course, had their time in college. Alan Diggs wouldn't put it past them, wouldn't put it past what Rodgers had with Christian Watson down the stretch last year as a Green Bay Packer. Overall, it was everything you wanted to see out of Aaron. He looked like he was having the time of his life. He always does there when there's cameras and there's anything. So hopefully Hard Knocks fills us in on whatever he was saying to Hackett there. These two peas in a pod. I don't think you can have any feelings but positivity if you're a Jets fan right now. Even that heavily scrutinized O-line did a really nice job of protecting him for the most part. Now, former first-rounder Mekhi Becton, he won the starting right tackle job. That was news. Although Saleh did say for now, okay? He run it for now. Does the Bakhtiari door open still? Like, what are we doing here, Saleh? But there's still a massive development on this team with that news. So I heard from Hamilton about those Jets fans that were sort of, waiting for the other shoe to drop. And I very much, listen, I'm that girl. I very much am in tune with that, and I love that. So I'm begging you Jets fans, just try to enjoy it. All right, let's move on to Trey Lance here. As you know by now, Trey Lance is a Cowboy after the Niners dealt him to the boys for a 4th rounder on Friday. I want to dig into both sides of this because I expected a trade to happen. I said it all along. But I really was, and I wish I could say like, oh, of course. I was really surprised, just as surprised as everyone when the destination was announced that it was going to be Dallas. And there are a lot of takes flying around in the aftermath, right? A lot of people insinuating this was done to put pressure on Dak in the negotiating process, as he, of course, is working on a new deal of his own. And while sure, having another talented quarterback around can serve to do that, I don't look at that as the motivation for Jerry Jones here, okay? Trey Lance isn't established enough at all to put any real tangible pressure on Dak or the quarterback situation in Dallas. I think it was truly Jerry trying to strengthen every aspect of his roster as his franchise is in a prime contending window, which I bring up, I think, more than a lot of people do. I asked RJ Ochoa, are you guys feeling the pressure of this window? Is Jerry at this stage of his life, the twilight of his career running the ship? Like, what does that feel like? Dallas cannot afford to waste anything this year if they want something to happen. They cannot afford a holdback, a setback, an injury, a calf strain, anything. And yes, Cooper Rush did a great job filling in last season when he had to. There's a clear difference in the ceiling, though, between him and a Trey Lance. So I think the Cowboys saw a need to strengthen the quarterback room, and they seized the opportunity. Because if you look at what has derailed the Cowboys' seasons in recent years, the common thread, my friends, is this. They only had 3 losing seasons since 2005. 5, every single one of them, they lost their starting quarterback and completely fell apart, okay? Twice as Cowboys fans remember, Romo getting injured, and then most recently Dak in 2020. Jerry can't let that happen this year. And he sees this NFC, and he's saying, this is wide open. Brock Purdy, okay, I'll take my shot here, and I'll take a quarterback away from them down the stretch. I'd like Christian McCaffrey throwing the ball at some point for those Niners this season in the NFC, okay? With this roster move, and with the roster looking like what it looks like, and me trying to get Jonathan Taylor on this roster as well, like, this is why Trey is in Dallas. And listen to what Jerry had to say after the trade.
I think had we been able to draft him with next year's 4, the kind of talent he was in this draft, like I just told you 2 years ago, we were looking at Philadelphia quarterback, I'm not going to call any names, but looking at him. Had he fallen to us there, we would have drafted him. It is our plan when we can, but it very seldom happens to have someone of high enough quality to be there at the right place with our draft pick. This one worked.
Okay, so I mean, the fact that he was ready to pull the trigger on Jalen Hurts in the second round 3 years ago, you can tell this quarterback situation is something following Jerry Jones around the building. It is eating at him. And with all respect to the great Ben DiNucci, guys, there hasn't been a backup quarterback in the building with this high of a ceiling in a very long time. He said, of that, I love how Jerry talks, of that quality. Like, whatever, like, it works. It all works. And when this team was winning Super Bowls, it was the calling card. Whether it was Steve Berline, Bernie Kosar, Rodney Peete, Wade Wilson, Dallas always had backups that had the goods. They had the talent. They had something to, like, hang your hat on from a ability standpoint. Trey, of course, still has a lot to prove, but I think that's what this was all about. The Cowboys they're going for it. They want everybody to know they're going for it, and they're going to try to make sure that nothing can stop them. With that, of course, comes tremendous pressure. Now, the Niners side of the deal, we can't ignore. This trade marked sort of the end of what's been going on in San Francisco that's been really strange, and an off-season saga that's actually gone more than one season that won't really be able to be unpacked until things get played out, right? We'll have to see what happens with the Niners. Do they go yard? Do they make it happen? Or what does or does not happen with either sides of those things? But I don't know. I do like how transparent our guy, Kyle Shanahan, has been, because his legacy is now really tied to Brock Purdy. If it doesn't work, it's going to open up a total can of worms, but let's take a listen.
I always feel like I let Trey down. I mean, I wanted him to come here. I believe in Trey. I believed in him before we took him, and I'm responsible for that. I didn't want to throw him into the heat of battle right away, but I thought he needed to play, so we tried to figure out every way to do that. I mean, if I can look back in hindsight, he broke that finger on a helmet on that 4th preseason game versus the Raiders. I wish I didn't put him in a play that had him break his finger, because I think that really hurt him in his first year. And not only did it hurt him not getting able to mix in much, but it hurt him in the practice time because he had to adjust how he threw and things like that, which I think set him back for his second year.
Look, so if you're one of these Niners fans or voices, like, you know, we of course have Rob Guerrero on our show all the time, like, did you get what you wanted there? You wanted him to take some responsibility, right? You wanted him to say, like, I maybe had something to do with, I had something to do that negatively in his development as a quarterback. And I gotta say, I did not expect to see this out of Kyle. And it was a really raw, emotional, candid press conference after the preseason game up against the Chargers. And I do give Kyle for get credit for taking some responsibility here. The reasoning at this point is a little bit irrelevant. Like, the bottom line is clear. Trey was nowhere near where they needed him to be developmentally with a team that's about to win a Super Bowl and is well on their way. That position, that everything is too important for the franchise to spend more time working on that. So now we know, Kyle's sort of admitting it, his legacy is tied to Brock Purdy. And if this doesn't work, it's going to be a disaster, right? But I will say, I got confidence. I know Hamilton has confidence. He was texting me this morning, I'm all in, Brock Purdy. And I do think this team will be in contention. So, Hamilton, I know you feel the same way. Why are you all purdied up?
Well, Kay, like you said, I think with where this team is from a roster standpoint, we got a little reminder this weekend of why Purdy is such a good fit for this team. And I have a little play for you. Okay. I want to show a little tape on a Monday morning, if we can dig into it. Here's a 3rd and 3. There's Brandon Ayuk at the top of the screen, and you'll see the quick processing from Purdy here. That's his call. As soon as that linebacker drops to the middle of the field, he knows there's no flat support. He can throw this hitch to Ayuk. Look at the ball coming out before Ayuk turns around. You'll see it again here. That ball is more than halfway there by the time Ayuk turns. He's going to come back to the ball and make a play. And it's funny because a lot of people are like, oh, another 4-yard pass by Brock Purdy that turns into a 40-yard gain. But this is what you want out of him, the accuracy, the process. He puts that ball on Ayuk's back shoulder so the DB doesn't have a chance to make the ball, and he lets Ayuk do the work after the catch. He identifies the right guy to throw to. He gets the ball out on time, anticipates his throws, and gets it there accurately. And with the amount of talent, you have a top 2 tight end, a top 2 running back, 2 top 20 wide receivers. That's what you want your quarterback to do. Just get the ball in the hands of these playmakers on time and let them make plays. And that's what Trey Lance was struggling with. And that's what Brock Purdy does really, really well. You don't need him to be Josh Allen or Aaron Rodgers running around making these crazy throws.
What about outside of the throwing? He's got a little icing on the cake, as I like to say. What do you got?
Yeah, I mean, we saw it on the scramble too, on this touchdown run. When things
mobility.
aren't there, when his guys aren't open, he's able to do some things like this when he has to too. So he has everything you're looking for with the way that the Niners are built. Yes, if you throw him into another situation that doesn't have as much talent, maybe he'll struggle, but he's not in that situation. He's with the Niners with all that talent, and I really think he gives them exactly what they need to be successful and contend for a championship.
We're doing our predictions. They start this week, and we're starting with MVP. And I I picked my MVP, and Hamlin's like, Brock Purdy? Do we want to go with Brock Purdy? That's who you would maybe go with in this NFC. We'll see. I hope, look, it's not like against Trey. Like, let Trey Lance thrive. Like, maybe he develops further. Maybe it gets better. Kyle Shanahan sort of took some blame, which he doesn't have to do, and he hasn't done all along, so it's kind of weird to see that, but it was clearly like a raw moment. We'll see what happens. But Hamilton, we're going to tell you to scram because we got a Hall of Famer on the show who you know and love, and so do I, and so do we. Cris Carter, a legend. Is he at a golf course today? Does he want to talk Tom Brady, Kirk Cousins? Did you see Kirk Cousins' facial hair? Did you see it? Did you like it? No, I'm sure you did. All right, guys, subscribe to Up and Adams on YouTube, because guess what? We are live now every Monday through Friday, starting a week from Tuesday. That's right, September 5th, 11 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Pacific. We're going to have lots of amazing guests just like this one.
Hall of Fame.
Going long for Cris Carter.
Are you kidding me? This is what he excels at. Hall of Fame.
Joining us now, an NFL legend who played 16 seasons in the NFL at wide receiver, a 3-time All-Pro, 8-time Pro Bowler, Walter Payton Man of the Year, Mr. Hall of Famer Cris Carter. How are you?
Well, thanks for having me, Kay.
It's good to see you. Where should we start? Can we start with Trey Lance to the Cowboys? What do you think?
Well, for one, San Francisco, and I thought the video that you played and the connection of Kyle Shanahan and the emotion that typically we're not going to see from a coach attached to a player. And 99% of the players that play in the NFL and drafted, we need a system, a coach that really helps bring out our strengths and not our weaknesses. And Kyle Shanahan, if he is a quarterback whisperer, and this is going to go down potentially as one of the worst trades in the history of what they traded away to get him, and then now get up the 4th rounder for him. So Kyle Shanahan being very, very frank, I'm glad he ended up in Dallas because I do believe there'll be a real opportunity there. But his injuries, the broken finger, the ankle, those things are real in the NFL. If you can't stay healthy, you're not going to be able to get better at playing the game. And if he gets in a shorts throwing contest with Purdy, he's not going to be able to win that because he can't utilize his athleticism. And that's what football is in the summer and the preseason. So I'm glad he ended up somewhere like Dallas, but San Francisco. It's amazing that they can make this type of blunder and still have the type of roster that they have. Because typically, this would cripple a franchise.
Now, the Cowboys side, they're stacked, they're loaded for bear, they're ready to go. If you're Dak, are you feeling some kind of way about this move for Trey Lance?
Well, if you know anything about the NFL and you know your replacement is one injury behind you, and with that, 1 or 2 bad games or interceptions behind you, yeah, I think Jerry Jones and what they're doing in Dallas is the right thing. They get a talent that they can look at and have in their building, in their system. Because also, if you look at what's the word about Kyle Shanahan and his system around the NFL, it's very complicated. It's hard to learn. It takes a long time to try to master that system. Now, that speaks to Purdy, how good he is, but also Trey Lance, maybe a different system really brings out his talent. But I like where Dallas is right now. And, of course, he should be looking over his shoulder because it's a real thing, because this is the most talented backup that's been behind him since they made the exchange with Tony Romo went into the broadcast booth.
To me, Trey Lance, when I watch him, it just seems like somebody with a lot of developing to do. When you watch the limited stuff that we've seen, do you think he has it? Does Trey have it?
I don't think anyone knows that yet, but I do think that he still has an upside that's worth looking into. I think a team like Dallas that can support him, especially being able to protect him. They got explosive offensive weapons in the backfield at the wide receiver position. So, yes, I do think that is a good system for him. San Francisco, if you look at Kyle Shanahan and the quarterbacks that he has been engaged with, typically they don't have a long relationship. So he's still trying to figure out, how to develop these guys to bring out the best in their overall ability. But I do believe there in Dallas he can continue to develop.
Yeah, he's got the talent, right? It seems to be like he's behind the ball with some of the hesitancy we sort of see when we're watching him. But this is a kid who blew the Niners away with his IQ, with how intelligent he is. And that's part of why they moved up to draft him. So if he just gets somewhere he can develop, and maybe that's Dallas. I made the case all last week, like he should go to the Vikings. He should go there, back up Kirk. Kirk's going to leave. He's going to want that bag of money. We know how Kirk works. And he could be there with a team that's rebuilding, but a team that has not addressed the quarterback spot at all. How are you feeling about your Vikings this year? I know you talked to Justin Jefferson.
Well, Justin Jefferson, he is really ready for the season. I did go down to training camp, visit with him. He said he's been working on a couple of things as far as in his game, weaknesses that he believes now can be strengths. He said that he's a better football player than he was last season. Kirk Cousins is still going to be the accurate Kirk Cousins. How much are they going to be able to protect him? Can they replace Dalvin Cook? And the huge mystery is not with their offense as much, it's with their defense. How are they going to get productivity? How are they going to create turnovers? How can they get back into the top half of the NFL as far as a defense? Because the defenses they put out there recently have not been up to the par of the purple of the past. So that's what I think about the Vikings. I think they're in a tough situation as far as Kirk Cousins, as far as how much more money into the future are we going to pay him.
Yeah, and your thoughts on the facial hair of young Kirk?
I'm all about it.
Is Kirk the thirstiest quarterback?
Kirk Cousins of late is a lot more likable guy. His teammates embrace that. I talk to people inside the organization. He's doing all that he can to try to win as many games as possible there in Minnesota. They had a sensational season last year. A lot of late comebacks. Can they duplicate that? And their defense, Brian Flores, he's going to have to do some miracle work. If their defense is good this year, Brian Flores should be a head coach in 2020.
Oh, we'd love to see. I mean, they lost Eric Kendricks, of course. They lost some pieces, but there's a couple questions, but hopefully they can do something this year. The Rookie of the Year odds over at FanDuel Sportsbook, they like that Jordan Addison kid. Now, I know you talked to Justin Jefferson, had a nice conversation, so much so that you tweeted the best wide receiver in football got better this offseason, scary for the league. But what about the Rookster and what he could be capable of filling in as the number 2?
Well, I think he's in a great situation. Typically, when we look at rookies of the year, you're looking at teams that are really dependent upon that productivity. And I think he's in a great situation, not only because Justin Jefferson, but their tight end is amazing. And I believe if they can keep him healthy, he's going to have another Pro Bowl season after an abbreviated season last year being traded from Detroit. And I think one of the most underrated players in their offense is KJ Osborne. Watch out for him because he is legitimate number 2 right now. So I think he's a great fit, Addison, for what they do. His speed, his ability to be able to catch the ball in traffic and make people miss. I believe they're going to really enjoy him there in Minnesota. Also, he's got one of the best wide receiver coaches in the NFL, in Keenan McCardle. I mean, he teaches it straightforward. He's gotten productivity out of almost every position that he's been at in the NFL. And that's what you see with Justin Jefferson also. So him being in that room is going to elevate his play. But I don't know if he's going to get enough targets to be Rookie of the Year. But he's got that protection around him that he's going to have a sensational rookie year. and his career is going to be off to a great start. So he is someone to watch there in Minnesota.
I mean, nobody else better win that division then, Cris. Sounds like they're good.
Detroit, the roar is back, man. Detroit is for real. Detroit's got me nervous. I think Chicago has improved. It's impossible to improve in Green Bay without Aaron Rodgers being there. So I look for Green Bay to take a step back. But yes, the Lions, they should be the favorite in the North.
Does any part of you think that Aaron not being in that locker room might be an actual okay step for this squad? Just like the pressure of having the MVP, the window. Now the expectations are so much lower. Couldn't that help Green Bay, or is that just me being cute?
No, that's you being real cute there. I like the way you did that and everything. Cute works for you, Kay, but come on, let's be real. You've been in these locker rooms.
Yeah.
It's about balling. We don't care if he's got a limp. We don't care if he's got all different types of things that we have to deal with. We don't care. We want the talent. We don't care about the distractions. We'll deal with that. We're used to having, as the great Bill Walsh said, I got 5 crazies on each team. So we're used to dealing with some craziness, some divaness. Come on, don't be cute.
No, I know.
Let's bring the talent.
It's crazy to think Jordan Love taking over this team. He's the veteran on offense, outside of Aaron Jones, some of the running backs, and Bakhtiari, some of the O-line. But in that wide receiver room, it's him leading these young cats, saying, like, let's do. But it might work that way. It was a take that Robert Mays at The Athletic had. We'll see what he thinks of it going on. But Cris Carter's like, absolutely not. MVP, Hall of Famer, like rare air. We get it. I want to talk to you about the rare air of Ohio State, because speaking of Aaron Rodgers, it was him to Garrett Wilson. Everybody's talking about them like it's going to be Burrow to Chase out there. But you and your school really have a lot of receivers lately, okay? Chris Olave, Jackson Smith-Njigba, who's hurt, of course, Garrett Wilson. If you could pick only one of them to build and to pick and draft for your football team, who would you pick?
Oh, my goodness. Now, okay, you guys didn't have that on the pre-information, the scouting
it's a tough
report.
one. I know.
Hey, I'm going to say this. I got to go with Marvin Harrison Jr.
Okay.
And the reason why is because he's got size that none of us have. He's got equal the speed of the guys that we have seen. And Chris Olave, Garrett Wilson, these guys were amazing. They were amazing. Jackson, he's going to be amazing in Seattle once he gets over his injury there. Brian Hartline does an amazing job. Him and Ryan Day have developing these guys and making sure that they are trained the right way. They're so unselfish. But Marvin Harrison Jr. and
Chris,
what he's doing.
That's a cop-out answer. That is not. He's still in college.
I go with Garrett Wilson because he's got the athleticism none of those other guys have. I mean, he can go vertical off the ground. He's got breakaway speed, and he's going to have a couple years with Aaron Rodgers, and that's the difference between all those other spots. Olave, amazing rookie year there with the Saints. Yeah. Jackson's he's going to be nice in Seattle. But the kid in New York, he's got a special combination already. We saw this weekend in the preseason. I
love that we're talking Marvin Harrison. I mean, he is the bona fide #1 wide receiver off the board next season for sure. And the fact that I even know who that is when I don't watch the college game, we know how good he'll be. Now, Justin Fields, since you love talking about Buckeyes, apparently, let's keep this going. Former Ohio State kid, he played in 2 preseason games. He's got the new wide receiver everybody expects the world from in DJ Moore, and they've hit on a few nice big plays. Is the addition of Moore enough to make Fields make the jump as the passer that we know we want him to make? It's a lot of pressure on Moore.
I mean, DJ Moore is going to be a great player, and they will be dependent upon him to be able to open up the field to the passing game they haven't had in Chicago in a long time. There are very few players as explosive as he is. Look at the training camp reels. Wide receivers, our legs are tired. We don't have that burst in training camp. We typically start getting our burst about right now, getting ready for the regular season. You saw him running. He was in midseason form. I mean, taking short passes, taking it the distance, ability to develop the route tree. That's what he's really underrated at. He's a better route runner than people give him credit because people weren't watching him that much there in Carolina. But yes, that's the type of combination that helps the wide receivers and the quarterback, both of them to be able to grow. But they still need to keep adding pieces. And that should keep it should keep him in the pocket more because he can trust his throws going down the field. But his development will be very, very important to how competitive the Bears are this year. Huge year for Justin Fields and the Bears.
Huge year for that offensive line. They got to keep him healthy. I don't know that they've had much time together at practice or through the preseason altogether. So you got to keep him healthy. You don't want to see any more injuries or just stifling to how good and how his abilities can just hit the ceiling this season. Tom Brady, we know his abilities. Soon to join you in the Hall of Fame, that rare air of the best to ever play the game. But he's doing all sorts of weird stuff. He's like owning teams and, like checking out Jimmy Garoppolo. Like, he's obviously minority owner of the Raiders, but here he was hanging out with Micah Parsons, Jerry Jones. Like, is he out there talking to Jerry, like talking shop, or is he saying, "Hey Jimmy, how's your elbow? How's your collarbone? I want to get out there at some point and throw the ball"?
Well, I don't think Tom is going to play. I think that at this point in his life, what he's contributed to football over 20 years, I mean, he's having the time of his life. When has he ever been able to go to a stadium, trained by Belichick, trained by the Patriot way, that he's been able to go to a stadium and really, really enjoy himself and cut loose? I'm glad that he's having fun. He is the perfect part owner at this stage. Eventually, I wouldn't be surprised if he was the majority owner of an NFL team.
Wow.
What a standard that he has set as far as the players that ever played this game. Not only how they do their business on the field, but how you do your business off the field. Tom Brady is the benchmark. He is the standard for doing that, and it's great to see him out there. It's great to see him enjoying himself all around the world. But yes, he should be attached to football. I'd much rather him be an NFL owner than owning one of the European soccer teams or something abroad. Yes, we need to keep him right in the NFL, and I'm glad him and the Raiders came to an agreement to be able to. There go my dogs, Kate.
I love your dogs. You gotta bring
Lola, come.
Lola, I love Lola. Okay, do you and Lola have a prediction for the season? It could be Super Bowl, it could be in-season, somebody that's going to pop off. Like, give me like the Cris Carter certified prediction for 2023.
I think Baltimore is going to surprise some people. I think Philadelphia legitimately 15-2. I mean, they are the dominant team in the NFC. And Patrick Mahomes is our modern-day Tom Brady. So I wouldn't be surprised if we saw a rematch in the Super Bowl. They're the cream of the crop. Wow. See if we can get them to that last game. Let's do a rematch. Let's do it over again.
I didn't hear
See if we can get pass interference late in the game or something like that. Patrick Mahomes scrambling with a bad ankle. Let's do it again.
You think the Ravens have a better year than the Bengals, Cris? Ooh, it's hard.
I think that could be one of the things that people look back and say, who didn't make the playoffs last year? Who's in this year? The Ravens, I do believe, are a playoff team.
Yeah, with Odell, with Zay looking the way he does, if they stay healthy, that defense, they are going to be much. And honestly, if everybody wasn't obsessed with Aaron Rodgers nonstop 24/7, everyone would be talking about the Ravens all offseason. It's true.
And the best special teams. They got the best kicker that we've seen in pro football.
Look at you, Cris Carter, giving a kicker some love on the way out, and that's why we love you. We appreciate you for joining us and picking Marvin Harrison Jr. as the NFL player. You are the actual best, and we appreciate it. Thanks, Cris.
I appreciate it. I'll see you soon. Thank you.
He's the best. I'm like, Marvin Harrison Jr., he's the greatest. That was a hard question. That was way too hard of a question. Impossible. That's our bad, not Chris's. We'll be back. We've got a lot of numbers to crunch. We've got some fantasy. We've got some predictathon. Who do I think will be the MVP of the National Football League? No, it will not be this guy. It will not be, but I'll tell you who it is next. Here we go, back on Up and Adams. Josh Jacobs back in the fold in Vegas, reporting that he's back, saying, hey, I think he tweeted it with a bunch of emojis, and then got a Saquon-esque deal in place with the franchise tag, which would pay him up to $12 million with incentives. We also got to look at the number 8 jersey. He announced this last spring. He just decided to switch back from the old 28. And the 8 was, of course, the number he wore back at Alabama. Okay, so even with Jacobs officially back, the Ravens' odds to win the AFC West, the Raiders' odds are unchanged, guys. We got plus 1,700. Yeah, Chiefs are the faves. I don't know if there's anything else that can sum up the reverence for Sean Payton and the doubt surrounding Mr. Josh McDaniel. Quite like that right there. Unbelievable. All right, we talked to Cris Carter. Didn't give him, I didn't get like the hot take I was looking for on Trey Lance. I was like, do you like him? Do you not like him? Do you see it? Do you not see it? He's saying nobody knows. It's good for the Bay Area. It's good for the Cowboys. Dak isn't bothered. There's a lot going on in the NFL. We got to talk. We got Garrett Wilson. He said Jordan Addison's in a great place, but wasn't ready to say he was going to be the best rookie. We have to have Cris Carter back on. We're going to run that back and we're going to do a prediction day with the Hall of Famer. But for now, guys, we have lots to talk about. And this is someone who, similarly to us, went on a training camp tour. And those can be up, down, and everywhere in between. So let us bring in someone who not only has the Athletic Football Show, but he's also a showrunner on said Athletic Football Show. So we're very excited to have Robert Mays finally agree to come on the show. Robert, thank you.
I would have come on earlier. It's not a matter of agreement. I just appreciated the invite.
I don't even know why I said that. I don't know why. I said it for no reason. I don't know why I did that. I'm so sorry.
It's okay. Anytime. I'm happy to be here.
How was your training camp tour? Tell me all about it.
It was wonderful. It's such a fun time of year. Everyone is in a good mood. No one's lost a game yet. It's good to just be around people talking football again after that kind of dry summer. I went to, I think, 21 teams in 30 days. And it was great. It's such a great way to get to know the teams, kind of get a lay of the land for how they're feeling, why the roster's constructed that way. So, Kay, when you're talking about all the teams all the time, it's really nice to have some fluency in what they're thinking and why they're thinking it. And it just has so much benefit. And I love doing it every year.
And it's hard to get the nitty gritty of what's really going on. What surprised you? The fact that you went to 21 boggles my mind. I think we did 7 or 8. And you have your notions or what you think's really going on, and then you kind of get in there and you do some digging and surveying, and you get sort of surprised by a thing or two. What's sort of your takeaway from visiting your 21 camps, the one that sticks out the most?
That's a really good question. What surprised me the most?
I loved hearing the stuff about Jordan Love sort of being the oldest guy to lead that young crew, and how it might be a good thing that Rodgers walked away.
So that's actually a good one. I think that Jordan said that to me specifically. He's like, I've been in this offense for 3 or 4 years, and all these guys are in year 1 or 2, and you forget that kind of stuff. You forget that he's not a rookie quarterback, that he's actually been there for a while. Nothing really shocking, I think. It's just more getting nuggets on why teams think of their team a certain way. Why the Bills felt like they needed to go get Dalton Kincaid, what the defensive plan for Buffalo looks like as they constructed that roster, why the Vikings did some of the things that they did, where they're kind of simultaneously taking a small step back while also keeping an eye on the future. So I don't think there was anything that truly shocked me, but just a lot of light bulb moments consistently when you're talking about the people that build these teams and why they're building them in this way.
I love that. I was listening to your podcast yesterday. Any podcast that mentions CJ Ham 9 times is a podcast for me. CJ Ham is for you to cover all 32, but go in on CJ Ham is delightful. So everybody check out the show over on The Athletic. But I want to go through some of the bigger headlines here, and let's go sort of one by one with the number 1 overall pick. You have Bryce Young, of course, getting taken. He's with the Panthers, making his debut. Any early signs that he's going to handle this transition really well?
Absolutely. Everything you saw from college that made him a special prospect and made him somebody that coaches, especially in the NFL that I talked to, really liked. He just has an incredible feel for the position in the pocket. You saw that right there, just making guys miss and having that sixth sense for how to navigate that space. And as we get more and more information on why young quarterbacks succeed and fail, I think that feel and that sense for how to operate in crowded spaces, that's the number one thing that allow guys to just survive in the NFL. And the fact that he has that, and that's really his superhero trait, you have to feel good about that if you're the Panthers, because I think it just makes his floor so high. And that he's already showing it's going to translate to the NFL game. He's shown you everything in the preseason that you probably want to see from Bryce Young. Maybe not his offensive line and the supporting cast, but that's a different conversation.
Yeah, there we go. Well, we can take that right to the Bears helmet behind you with that O-line. We'll talk about that eventually here as well. But let's go from Bryce Young to CJ Stroud. He was named, listen, when the Texans drafted, I was like, is any team going to improve more than this squad this year from what they were to what they could be? What is the big hurdle for Stroud, who is, of course, named the QB1 officially?
just that the same kind of question, his ability to kind of navigate those muddy pockets. When he was playing at Ohio State, they had an incredible offensive line. You know, both of their tackles were drafted this year, one in the top 10. DeJuan Jones already looks good. They had such a talent advantage at receiver in every game they're going to play. And you look at him over the first 8-9 games of Ohio State season, and he can make a meal in the pocket. The advantages that they have are so defined that I think those last couple games they played against Michigan and Georgia, coaches, GMs liked seeing some of the things he showed in those games because he was forced off his spot. He was made to be uncomfortable, and you saw him handle those situations well. So that's going to be the biggest hurdle, the biggest jump for him is when things get a little muddier, when things get a little dirtier in the pocket because of pressure, because the talent advantage isn't there. How does he negotiate those situations? And there have been a couple of them in the preseason. He's shown that he's able to do it, but that's absolutely the biggest jump for him as a college quarterback to what he's going to be in the NFL.
Love that. And from the quarterbacks back to the running backs, I mean, there's some moves made. You know, you have Kenyon Drake. You've got James Robinson, who was released. Never quite the same, it's at least just my opinion, since the injury, just speed-wise. So they're going to try to find homes. Then you have this Jonathan Taylor imposed Tuesday deadline, the hard out to find a suitable landing spot. Do you, like, from teams you've talked to, like, you're in it. Is he coming back to the Colts? How does that even happen? Where else could he go?
I would anticipate him coming back to the Colts. If I had to pick one destination, it would be the Colts. I don't think the Colts ever wanted to trade him. This deteriorated so quickly over the course of the offseason, and he's a really good player, and he's under contract. And he doesn't have a ton of leverage in this scenario. And my guess and my read on this, and this isn't from anything I've specifically reported in the last couple of weeks, but just talking to people and being around, this feels like why don't you go out, you have your agent make some calls, you see what you're worth, and then you come back and talk to us, and then maybe we can figure this out. And my assumption on August 24th, 25th, when this was all rolling, there aren't a lot of teams that are going to give up tons of draft capital and pay that Jonathan Taylor at this stage of the calendar. And my guess is the Colts knew that. And they were willing to kind of call him on that. And when they come back to the table early this week, they set the deadline for Tuesday. I assume that there will be some sort of resolution, whether that's him playing for the Colts, him playing on some sort of extension. But I anticipate him playing in Indianapolis. I may be wrong on that, but that's always kind of how I felt this would end.
I wanted him to go to the Cowboys, and they snagged Trey Lance instead. Let's go to the Bay a little bit here. Any thoughts on how this all went down? Kyle Shanahan's pretty emotional, visceral reaction to all of it. Did you go up to the Niners?
I did not go up there. No, I was in LA, but didn't end up getting to San Francisco. The whole thing is so messy. Yeah. I understand why Kyle Shanahan is upset because he said it. I feel like I failed Trey Lance. And I can understand that reaction and that conclusion when you look at the entire saga and how it played out. I think they like him personally. A lot of people like him personally. When you think about the competing timelines, though, this makes sense. The Niners are ready to win right now. Brock Purdy gives them the type of quarterback play where you're really doing what Kyle Shanahan wants you to do. It's pitch and catch, it's point and shoot. He's somebody that you can kind of put in a box in the way that Kyle Shanahan likes to with his quarterbacks. Trey Lance's ceiling is obviously higher theoretically with the physical skill set that he has, but what he's doing right now doesn't allow the Niners offense to hum in the same way that Brock Purdy does. So you go back in time, and if those injuries don't happen and they allow him a little bit more runway to develop last season, what ends up going down. But right now, I understand how they arrived at this conclusion, even though it's a really tough pill to swallow when you think about all they gave up for him.
For sure, and they have to figure out Bosa, too, which isn't going to be weird or continues to be weird, but hopefully they come to terms with him. Listen, I have this, condition, I don't know if you would call it a malady or, a quirk of mine that when I visit these teams, I just fall in love with them. I have no pragmatism at all, no objectivity. I'm the Jets, the Bills are winning. No, literally the Commanders are winning the Super Bowl. They are going, the vibes here are so high. Was there a team that you visited that you walked away and you said, man, I'm not going to say it, but I got a little feeling about this squad?
It happens way too often to me, and I've tried to check myself in the last couple of years. Last year, I had a pretty tough experience with what the Rams staff told me about Allen Robinson, and a tweet went out there, and let's just say it did not come to fruition. So I've tried to tap the brakes a little bit more this year. But there are a couple teams. A team that I just didn't expect the vibes to feel as good as they were because of where they're at was the Rams. It was one of the first practices that I watched, and the energy was so good. So then you start talking yourself into, this is a young team, and Sean McVay feels like He's revitalized. And can you kind of feel that new energy across the roster with all these 6th, 7th round defensive backs? And if the offense stays healthy, and then you start telling yourself a story about every single one of these teams. And the optimism definitely creeps in a way that's probably not justified, but that's the tone that they all have at this time of year. So it's hard not to let that affect you. But sometimes I think it's important to make sure that you put your rational cap on and just say, okay, this is what they're telling me. This is the story they're telling themselves. What is real in this and what is not? And parsing that can be difficult sometimes.
Well, that's your job. That's not my job. Is like, I'm Hype Queen USA. Like, I want everybody's gear, the helmets. I fell in love with everyone. I could not believe it. And it's even when I was listening to you on the pod yesterday with your latest pod with Eben Schneidman, and you guys are like getting kicked out of rooms in Green Bay, which I think is so funny. You guys finally find a place, just like the nuances of being on the road. And then, you're talking about what this team could be. And I'm like, man, I'm about to pick the Bears to win the division as my sneaky prediction pick. But maybe Jordan Love has what it takes. They might make him the captain because they believe in him. So when you look at Chicago, which I know you have an affinity for, I have a connection to as well, is there more positive to take away than ever before? I always stop myself. I'm trying to self-protect myself from getting hurt because I'm looking at that O-line and I'm like, what's happening there? What are your main takeaways with your Chicago experience?
I think that Ryan Poles has done the right things. He's put this roster in the right place for the stage of the team building process that they're in. They needed to get answers on the quarterback. That was it. That was the priority this offseason. They passed on one at number 1. They have 2 first-round picks in next year's draft. They need to know by the end of this year if Justin Fields is somebody worth committing to in the long term. And in order to do that, you have to make sure he's surrounded by the right sort of help. They go sign Nate Davis in free agency. They draft Arnold Wright with the 10th overall pick. They get DJ Moore as part of that haul from Carolina, which I think was inspired. It allows you to build for the future while also getting the information you need in the short term because you have a number 1 receiver. But now it all has to come together. And unfortunately, like you alluded to, the Jenga blocks are starting to get pulled out of this thing. Mm-hmm. You have to move Cody Whitehair over. Lucas Patrick, who didn't play well last year, is the center now. There's other guys that are banged up. They haven't practiced much together. So I feel like the stages from March 1st until right now were the correct moves. They just have to come together. And I have this inkling of doubt that it's going to be a little bit harder for that all to fall in place than it might have at other points this offseason.
Got to protect this Fields kid. Oh, my goodness. Such great analysis. And you really prepare for the rookies. I love listening to all your stuff at The Athletic with preparing me for what these guys are going to look like and how they're going to translate into the NFL. So I want you to hit me. We gave you some homework. I don't know how you did it because you have a million things that you do. Your top 5 sort of breakout rookies and I guess kind of fantasy sleepers for my own personal gain. What do you got?
Yeah, these are a lot of first and second year players. So I had Tony Adams from the Jets, who they really like as a safety, who's a street free agent. I just think that he has a skill set in that defense. He could really shine. Troy Anderson from the Falcons, a second-year player, didn't play a lot of linebacker in college, but has an incredible physical toolbox. And with their new defensive coordinator, I think he has a chance to be a really good player. Jalen Phillips from the Dolphins, just an unbelievable athlete. Was a little raw, kind of won with effort and athleticism over his first couple seasons. I think he has a chance to really put it together. His underlying metrics as a pass rusher are fantastic. And 2 quarterbacks, I think, just have a chance to play a little bit better than people might think. Going back and watching Kenny Pickett, he had some real flashes as a rookie, and he didn't really practice with those receivers in camp. I think he could take a really big jump in year 2. And we talked about Jordan Love a little bit. He has a lot of experience in this system, even if he hasn't played. So both of those guys, I almost had them tied for number 1 because I felt like they had a chance to just be better than people anticipated with a lot of doubts about how the quarterback play would affect those offenses. And the last guy I had was Elijah Moore. They really wanted that sort of skill set in Cleveland. A player that played like him. And they got him essentially for free because the Jets were ready to cut late and just move on for a lot of different reasons. And he just gives them speed, athleticism at receiver that they have not had. They haven't had that type of guy. And I think you're going to see that skill set expressed in this offense in a different way.
It was the first couple of days of camp, and I was with the Jets, and I asked Coach Saleh by himself, Quinnen Williams by himself, Aaron Rodgers after he was picked off by Tony Adams, who is the guy who's popping off the page at this camp, and all of them said TA. All of them, and then it's worked, and we've seen it through the rest of the preseason. So he should be an absolute baller. He might be my DPOY this year. Who knows? I just love that. I'll just fall in love with him on the spot. We appreciate you, Robert. We know you have so much going on. Do you just go by Robert? Nothing else? Just Robert? There's no nickname there?
I do. I go by Robert. A lot of Roberts in my family, so it was the one that wasn't taken when I was a kid. Rob, Bobby, everyone else was.
Where in Chicago are you from?
I'm from Barrington originally, so like
Barrington.
just in the northwest suburbs, and then I live in Logan Square now, so I'm in the city.
Logan Square, Blue Line. Love it. I used to I grew up on Harlem Blue Line, so not a couple stops northwest. And then, I went to school. You went to like Barrington High School, would that be then?
I did. Yep, the helmet right behind me there. Yep. Lucas Van Ness went there. A couple Barrington guys in the NFL now, so we're representing well.
I'm glad we got that in there. Appreciate it, Rob Mays. Guys, listen to him on the Athletic Football Show. I'm not kidding. Like CJ Ham is always. Anybody who has fullback talk, what are we talking about? It's a great show. So much good insight and info to get us ready for this show where we just like clown around and have a good time. So thank you, Cris Carter. Thank you, Rob Mays, two Hall of Fame minds on the program. And here's a future Hall of Famer, Rare Air. We're gonna get to my predictions. Any of these guys my choice for MVP? Nope. Okay, 8 days away from the kickoff to the NFL season, just 8 days. And everybody in sports media and everybody at the bar after work and everybody at the water cooler. Are water coolers still a thing? Yeah. Are they? Sure. Janice, Alice, and Tim from accounting, they're all saying, who do you think's going to win? Who do you think's going to take down this division? It is all about the preseason predictions. Now, FanDuel Sportsbook has a lot of really fun ones, so please go over there and check out some of those. But we thought we would do this and sort of blow it out as we do with everything on Up and Down. It's not going to be one day with predictions or just a couple. We're going to do one each and every day till the start of the season. It's time for the Up and Adams Predict-a-thon!
8 days of K's NFL season predictions. And here she is with her pick, Kay Adams.
Eric, that's pretty amazing.
Predict-a-thon.
Is that your voice? Or can I run that again? I want to hear it. It's time for, somebody's walking in back of you. It's time for Predict-a-thon. They're all screaming, where are the...
It's Predict-a-thon. 8 days of K's NFL season predictions. And here she is with her pick, Kay Adams.
I like that there's like, why is there a bomb in the middle of it? What is it? Why is there like a firework? I don't quite understand, but that's right. It is time for Predict-a-thon, 8 straight days of 2023 season predictions. And in all spirit of all things Predict-a-thon, we're going to start off with a bang. We thought, do we do like a division winner starting off first? Should we do like Rookie of the Year? No. We're going to hit you, not with some low ball pick offers. We're going to go hard in the paint. NFL passing leader, Child's Play. NFL rushing leader, Amateur Hour. Let's do it. This is my prediction for NFL regular season MVP. Let's take a look at the winners of the last 5 years, right? You had your Mahomes, you had Rodgers, of course, Lamar. This is the who's who of NFL quarterbacks in the league. And we're going to add someone right now. My prediction for MVP is easily Justin Herbert, okay? We have seen him go up and up and up, taking leaps, gaining momentum each successive season of his career. Last year made a playoff appearance, and I think there's plenty of reason to believe this year could be another monumental step forward. Not that it matters, this is the regular season MVP. For one thing, guys, he's healthy, no rib injury, half of his body was falling apart, and he played throughout the season. He was so tough. He's played through a labrum tear in his shoulder that required surgery, and he still threw almost 5,000 yards. The numbers matter, the panache matters, taking a leap matters. I was at Chargers camp, guys. Everyone was raving about how healthy he looked, how dominant, and everyone around him is healthy too right now. Mike Williams, Keenan Allen, they missed 8 games last year. Now you get Quentin Johnson, their first rounder, tall kid in the mix. Rashawn Slater is there. Kellen Moore is going to let him pop back and launch it. Not like that. It'll look much better than that, and he will be the MVP. It will be the storyline of the season. Let's go. Hey, thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest Up and Adams content right on YouTube.